Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload is going to be an update on, if you recall, I made a video a couple days ago about the brief cooldown that will be occurring. And I coined it a pattern change back then. It's still going to be a pattern change. It's going to be a change of the pattern. I'll go figure. But this is going to bring cooler air into the United States, especially the Midwest, really. And Eastern United States may get in on some of it, the coast. Really, though, it's going to be centered towards the Midwest and the upper plains. However, this unfortunately won't last too long. But it definitely, the confidence has stayed as where it was, or the confidence has gone up, and the cool weather has definitely stayed where it was earlier. So it's still forecasted to. It still looks as if it's gonna be incoming into the next into early next week. However, before that, we actually have a heat wave to get through. This weekend's gonna be hot and across most of the United States. So that's definitely something that's going to be unfortunate. Also, if you guys would like to subscribe to this channel, consider doing so. I do all sorts of weather-related content, weather videos, long-range forecasts. I am not a meteorologist. I am a hobbyist. And what I do on here is just interacting with you guys that also like the weather. This is not a me trying to teach anyone here. I have, don't know much myself. I'm constantly learning as we go on, and that's everybody mindset should be like, even if you are a quote-unquote professional, but I'm not, just letting you know. So another thing I want to point out is, I'm sorry I'm delaying this quite profusely, but I want to look at the National Hurricane Center. I want to bring this attention. There's quite a bit of activity across the tropics. Now there's tropical storm Hannah, and you can see it's not overly powerful. There's still a bit of uncertainty with it, but it looks as if it'll make trek onto the southern Texas coast. It doesn't seem like it will be bringing, like huge hurricane threat, anything like that. Heavy rain is the biggest threat, possibly. You can see flash flooding and isolated minor to moderate river flooding. So stay, if you live in that area along the Gulf Coast, stay safe for that. Also, there's another disturbance, Tropical Storm Gonzalo. This thing is interesting. This thing is very far out. There's a lot of uncertainty. So also just keep an eye on the tropics, as that we're getting towards that time of the year where we get a lot of uncertainty. So definitely go to the National Hurricane Center, as that is a much better source than me or any other wannabe source, if you will. So let's look at the European model, ECMWF. Now, the European model has been the biggest proponent of this cooldown by far, and more than the GFS, which usually the GFS does this type of things. That's what I've noticed. Usually the GFS is more cold biased. This case, you can see it's showing warm air, but the GFS just does a really bad job of showing where it's cooler, where it's warmer, because it's showing the days as being much cooler and the nights being much warmer than average, which is a bit strange what it does here. But you can see that during the night, it just shows much more orange. During the days, there's more blue that just pops up, and that's what the GFS has been doing. But you can see that for sure next week we definitely see some cooler air. The GFS really, again, doesn't do a good job of portraying this, as there's a lot of mixing. You can see there's warm colors and now there's cold colors. So let's just take a better look at what the European has to say, as that the GFS I think is great at times to forecast certain weather events like a storm, a snowstorm, maybe even some pattern changes in terms of temperatures. Generally speaking, the European does a tidier and better job of that. So let's take a look at the European model, and let's take a gander. So this is the 850 HPA temperature anomaly in Celsius. This is a bit higher in atmosphere and isn't quite the surface temperatures. This isn't your average 2-meter temperature anomaly. But it still does a pretty good job of saying, showing what the 2-meter would look like. So again, this isn't it, but if I were to show you a 2-meter temperature anomaly, it would look very similar to this. That's what I've noticed with this modeling, and that should be the case with if it's a good running model. And you can see again, the European already shows a much better job. It's not all over the place. It shows a more defined area of heat, which is going to be this Saturday, this Sunday, this Monday, this weekend, basically. In other words, and you can see that the heat is going to be expansive across the Northeast, the Great Lakes, the Upper Midwest. But only area where it is cooler is across the four corners and parts of the Southwest, a bit of cooler air is going on there, so that's definitely some good relief. They've had a pretty warm year thus far as well, though really it's they're not outliers. It's been most of the country has had a really warm year, excluding portions of the Pacific Northwest, which have seen a slightly cooler weather, especially in July. So let's take a look at this. Notice by Tuesday, Monday, we start getting cooler weather across the northern plains in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota. All these locations start getting cooler weather, and we move into the portions of the Midwest. We see Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. Again, it does dwindle as it furthers itself into the United States. You can see it becomes less meaningful, but it definitely it does cool things off, or at least keeps the heat at bay. But unfortunately, as you can see, by the next week, which is by next weekend, really, the heat is back on. While we may be looking at a bit more cooler temperatures on their way. Sorry about that. That was my chair squeaking. So I do apologize about that. It wasn't what you think it was. But you notice that we have this cooler temperatures up here that are possibly going to come down. Again, that's really just a gamble at this point. It may or may not. It's a pretty large reservoir of cooler temperatures. It's 240 hours out. It's really far. Plus, we'll have to see what this actually does. This may bring some cooler temperatures across the U.S. But really, again, it looks as if most of August will be on a warmer side. Though, hopefully, if we're lucky, we could get in a transition phase where there's a brief cool off and a brief warm up, brief cool off and a brief warm up, with a bit of the warm up side of things than the cool off. The cool offs will be a bit less significant and affecting less portions of the country. So that's that. Let's take a look at the Canadian model. The Canadian is usually similar to the GFS in terms of temperatures. It does a similar job. And it does it better than a European or the GFS. You can see warmer temperatures this weekend. I decided to stay on this North American view because I think it's cool. Just look at this. We have all of North America, Mexico, United States, and Canada. And we have this whole, I can't forget about Greenland. But we have this whole, this whole pattern. We have patches of warmer, patches of cooler air. And notice again, the Canadian shows that cool off this weekend. Not too significant as the European, but it definitely shows it. And then for further out, you can see it shows the heat coming back, but it keeps some of the cool air in, which is, we'll just have to wait and see what it comes out to. Again, if I were to take a model over the Canadian, it would be the European. The European is typically better than the Canadian, though Canadian has definitely had scenarios where it's been right, or I guess more right than the European or the GFS. Let's look at the 6 to 10 day outlook. This is from the July 29th through the August 2nd. And let me just go back to this cool down and show you that when this cool down will be starting to occur across the northern plains around the 27th, and we're basically done by August 2nd or 3rd. You can see that kind of encapsulates this 6 to 10 day outlook. You can see a cooler air mass across the Midwest, or at least in normal temperatures. So that is nice. That is pleasant. We're going from, it'd still be pleasant to go from a 95 degree a day to a 80 degree day, which is closer to average. And in some cases, maybe even some upper 70 degree days, especially towards the upper plains, as that's what will be occurring. Now you can see there's heat on all sides, on the west, the south, the east coast. So again, this won't be expensive, but some people will get impacted by this, and I wanted to bring that to attention. Notice we've had this pattern that has brought more precipitation to the northern U.S. and less precipitation to the southern U.S. And now again, with the tropics acting up and a lot of uncertainty going on, you can see they've really increased the activity of the precip higher across the south and really below across the north, which we'll have to see. This is a 6 to 10 day outlook, so it doesn't always hold true, but usually it does do a fairly good job. And you can see that in this case it's drier towards the north, wetter towards the south. 8 to 14 day outlook. Now this is way past this initial cool off, right? You can still see it shows some of that cool air, so this is kind of getting into that uncertainty of the second wave, which we'll have to see. Again, this is at this point speculation. This wave, it may or may not come. It may just be gone by the next model run of the European tomorrow at noon. But notice, or today at noon, notice that we have, again, warm air. It'll be more intrusive around the cooler air. The cooler air kind of gets dwindled down, if you will. But you can see cooler across Alaska, and then that just cuts off because the National Weather Service, or NOAA, doesn't forecast for Canada. It's a different country. And you can see that if this were to be drawn out, the cooler air will continue into the Canadian area. Now, how far would this continue? I don't know, as it's blank, but I would assume a little ways out it would continue. especially looking at what the European is showing at this time frame. I wanted to show you now the precipitation outlook for the GFS and the European. I'll show you Pivotal Weather and windy.com. So let's go back to the regions and I'll show you the precipitation. So let's take a glance at total accumulated precipitation. Let's just go through all 384 days. This is not a video about this particular storm, but you can see definitely larger amounts of precipitation towards the south, lesser towards the north, and that's a bit of a good thing. If you've noticed the pattern, it's been drier across the south than the north, and where it has been warmer is the south. So they definitely need to rain a bit more than us across the north. Again, I'm just speaking for my location. We've had a average precipitation, I guess, compared to the heat ratio. It rains, it's hot, but at least we get rain. The south, it's hot, but they didn't get a lot of rain in the past weeks. Now they're getting some of that action. The northwest stays dry, including much of the west, in fact. Four Corners region may get a bit of precipitation, so that's definitely some good news. Northeast also staying dry. Now let's take a look at the European precipitation amounts. So notice we are looking at the European precipitation amounts through hour 240. So you can see that there are obviously a few areas across the south that are still going to remain dry. Some areas bone dry, 0.01, 0.2. But you can see that there's plenty of locations where we're going to be seeing 2 to 3 inches. And if you can see this heavier precipitation moves on shore, further inland, we could be looking at precipitation amounts well into the 4 or 5 inch range at widespread real estate, not just isolated thunderstorms dropping 3 to 4 inches over one area. It could be more widespread, which I guess is a good thing. You have a higher chance of getting rain, but it's also not a good thing if there's too much of it. It could cause flooding. Notice northeast pretty consistent with the GFS, rather dry. This goes out to 240 versus the GFS at 384, but shows a bit more precip towards the Iowa area. Actually, quite a bit, really just centered across Iowa, hogging it all up, if you will. But the Midwest, Minnesota also seeing quite a bit of precipitation, though. Again, very patchy and very patchy, and not really seeing I guess large amounts of this precip. But again, this is summer, if you will. It's a drier time of the year. It's usually not the best time for wishing for wetter soils. I mean, it's the time of the year where you would want a wet soil because the crops are growing. But again, the heat dries it up quickly, and unfortunately, that's just the toughness of summer across the United States, at least. We just get a lot of hit and miss showers. You could have an overall wet pattern, but a few locations may still be dry because of the overall pattern with the thunderstorms that have been occurring and do occur. Notice portions of southern Texas, really this little tip right here, could be seeing a lot of precipitation. That's to do with the tropical storm Donna. I think that's the name. I'm already forgetting. Hannah, sorry, right there. You can see there's a pretty big blunder. But definitely concern, as it could drop a lot of precipitation over a pretty large area, so stay safe. Peninsula Florida also seeing quite a bit of rain, but nothing out of the ordinary. But again, it doesn't take anything out of the ordinary to make something extraordinary. So I just made that up. I don't know if that actually holds true. We'll see. So thank you guys so much for watching. Consider liking the video. Consider subscribing to the channel. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.